Last week, I attended the funeral of a man I worked with for 30 years. He was successful, wealthy, and had thousands of LinkedIn connections. But as I looked around the room, there were only 4 of us. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Most of the people we call friends in our 30s and 40s are just proximities. They are people we work with, people we drink with, or people who want something from us. But when the music stops at 60, those people vanish. If you want to survive the final chapters of your life without losing your mind to loneliness, you don't need a crowd. You need exactly 3 specific types of friends. And if you don't have them yet, you're in trouble. Welcome back. I'm Arthur Davis. At my age, you start to realize that your circle doesn't just get smaller, it gets refined, like gold in a furnace. Many of you watching this are in your 50s or 60s, and you're feeling that quiet shift. The phone rings less. The social invites dry up. You might feel lonely, but I'm here to tell you that's actually a gift. It's life's way of clearing the noise so you can focus on the few who actually matter. Today, I'm going to share the 3 types of souls you must keep close to your heart if you want a meaningful old age. Subscribe to this channel if you're ready for some real talk about the years ahead. Let's look at friend number 1. The first person you need is what I call the history keeper. This is the person who knew you when you were skinny, broke, and didn't have a clue what you wanted to do with your life. For me, that was a man named Bobby. We grew up on the same dusty street in Chicago. Bobby saw me fail my first driving test, he saw me get my heart broken for the first time, and he was there when I got my very first paycheck. You see, when you reach your 50s and 60s, the world sees you as a finished product. They see Mr. Davis, the retired executive, or the grandfather, or the man with the house and the pension. People treat you with a certain level of formality, or worse, they look right through you like you're invisible. But the history keeper? They don't care about your title or your bank balance. To them, you're still just that kid who was afraid of the dark, or the teenager who thought he could play guitar like Elvis. At our age, we often lose our sense of identity. We retire, our kids move out, and we wonder, who am I now? The history keeper is the mirror that reflects your true self back to you. They remind you of your original dreams before the world crushed them or changed them. They are the only ones you can laugh with about a joke that happened 40 years ago without having to explain the punchline. If you have someone who knew your parents, who remembers your first car, and who knows the you that existed before the world told you who to be, hold on to them with both hands. Because once that person is gone, a huge part of your own story dies with them. You become a book with the first 5 chapters ripped out. Don't let the busyness of your later career or the distance of moving away break that bond. Call them today. Because at 70, you realize that shared history is a currency more valuable than gold. The second person you need is someone most people actually try to avoid. I call them the hardest truth teller. As we get older, especially if we've had some success in our careers, we tend to surround ourselves with yes men. Our children don't want to upset us, our younger colleagues are too polite to disagree, and we start to believe our own hype. We become stubborn. We think our age makes us infallible. That is a dangerous place to be at 60. You need a friend who isn't afraid of your temper or your title. I had a friend like this named Jim. When I was 55, I was considering a very risky get-rich-quick investment that promised to double my retirement fund. Everyone else said, "Go for it, Arthur, you've earned it." But Jim sat me down, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Arthur, you're being an arrogant fool. You're gambling your wife's security because your ego wants one last big win. Walk away." I was furious. I didn't speak to him for a month. But eventually, the anger cooled, and I realized he was right. He saved me from a mistake that would have haunted my 70s. A hardest truth teller is your moral compass. They are the ones who tell you when you're being too hard on your kids, when you're drinking too much, or when you're becoming a bitter old man. They don't tell you what you want to hear. They tell you what you need to hear to keep your character intact. In your 50s and 60s, your biggest enemy isn't the economy or the government, it's your own stubbornness. Without a friend who can pull you back from the edge of a bad decision, you risk ruining a lifetime of hard work in a single moment of late-life pride. If you have someone who still has the courage to tell you no, thank them. They are the guardians of your legacy. The third person you need is perhaps the rarest of all. I call them the silent companion. When you're young, friendship is about doing things. You go to games, you go to bars, you talk loudly about politics or business. It's high energy. But as you cross into your 60s, you start to realize that constant talking is exhausting. You reach a point where you've said everything there is to say. The silent companion is the friend you can sit with for 3 hours on a porch or by a lake or even in a quiet living room without saying a single word and not feel a second of awkwardness. My friend Charlie was that man for me. After I lost my brother, I didn't want advice. I didn't want someone telling me everything happens for a reason or he's in a better place. I just wanted someone to be there so I didn't feel the weight of the silence alone. Charlie would come over, sit in the chair across from me, and read his newspaper while I stared out the window. His presence was a shield against the loneliness. At our age, we face a lot of quiet moments. The house gets bigger as the kids leave. The noise of the world starts to fade. In those moments, a friend who demands that you perform or entertain them becomes a burden. You need someone who understands that your presence is enough. This kind of friendship is built on a foundation of absolute trust. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to hide your tiredness or your aches. You can just be. It's a profound intimacy that young people rarely understand because they are too busy filling the air with noise. If you have someone you can be silent with, you have found a soul who truly knows yours. In the final chapters of life, silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of peace. And that peace is only possible when you're with a friend who doesn't need words to love you. I want to tell you about a mistake I made in my late 50s, a mistake that still keeps me awake some nights. I had a friend named David. We had been friends for 20 years through thick and thin. But then a business opportunity came along. It was a real estate deal that promised a massive payout, but it required me to squeeze David out of his share. My ego told me, "It's just business, Arthur. David will understand. You need this for your retirement." So I took the deal. I got the money, but I lost David. He didn't yell. He just looked at me with a look of pure disappointment and walked out of my life. 10 years later, David passed away. I went to his funeral, and as I stood there in the back of the church, I realized something devastating. I had that extra money in my bank account, but I didn't have the one person who would have truly walked with me through the end of my life. I had passed the money test, but I had failed the funeral test. The funeral test is simple. If you lost everything tomorrow, your house, your pension, your status, who would still be standing at your side? Most of the people we network with at 50 are only there because of what we have. But your true friends are there because of who you are. I traded a 20-year soul for a digital balance in a bank. And now that I'm older, I realize that you can't buy a phone call at 3 a.m. when you're scared. You can't buy a hand to hold when you're in a hospital bed. If you are currently putting a business deal, a political argument, or a petty grudge above a long-term friendship, I am begging you, stop. Fix it today. Because the loneliest place in the world is a big house filled with expensive things and no one to share a quiet meal with. Don't wait until you're standing at their funeral to realize they were worth more than the gold. I hear it all the time from men and women my age. "Arthur, it's too late for me. Everyone already has their circles. How am I supposed to start over at 60? I understand that fear. The world feels like it's closing its doors. But here's the truth. Making friends after 50 is actually easier in one way. You finally have the courage to be honest. When you're 30, you make friends based on competition or career. When you're 60, you make friends based on vulnerability. The secret to finding those 3 essential types of friends in your later years isn't joining a crowded club or a loud party. It's about showing up in places where your values are on display. Don't look for friends. Look for shared burdens or shared passions. Volunteer at a local shelter, join a community garden, or take a class for a skill you've always wanted to learn. When you are working side by side with someone on something that matters, the barriers drop. But here is the most important part. You have to be the one to reach out. At our age, everyone is waiting to be invited. Everyone is sitting at home feeling just as lonely as you are, hoping the phone will ring. Be the person who makes the call. Say, "I enjoyed our conversation at the library. Would you like to grab a coffee?" It feels risky, I know. It feels like high school again. But remember, at 50 plus, we don't have time for games. We don't have 20 years to slowly get to know someone. Skip the small talk. Ask the deep questions. Talk about your regrets, your joys, and your fears. You'll be amazed at how quickly a stranger becomes a silent companion or a truth teller when you have the courage to be the first one to be real. It is never too late to add a new chapter to your book of life. As I sit here today, looking back over 9 decades, I realize that the wealth of a man isn't measured by the size of his estate, but by the strength of the hands that will hold his when the time comes to say goodbye. We spend the first half of our lives gathering things, money, titles, possessions, but we should spend the second half of our lives gathering souls. You don't need 1,000 followers. You don't need to be the most popular person in your town. You just need those 3. The one who remembers your history, the one who guards your truth, and the one who shares your silence. If you have those 3, you are a wealthy man, no matter what your bank statement says. If you don't have them, then your most important job starting today isn't your retirement planning or your health. It's your connection to others. My parting advice to you is this. Don't let pride or a busy schedule keep you from the people who actually matter. Pick up the phone, forgive that old grudge, admit you were wrong. The clock is ticking for all of us, and the only thing we take with us is the love we gave and the friendships we honored. I hope this lesson helps you find the peace and companionship you deserve in these beautiful later years. If you found value in this talk, please like this video. It helps me reach more people who might be feeling lonely today. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Arthur Davis's Life Lessons. I have a lot more to share with you as we navigate this journey together. Before you go, leave a comment below. Tell me about one friend who has been there for you for more than 20 years. Let's celebrate them today. Thank you for spending your time with me. Live wisely, and I'll see you in the next video.